Well, free speech is obviously our birthright as Americans, but it was born in the UK. And free speech seems to be dying there as well. Mass immigration and the cult of multiculturalism that made it possible, in the end, proved more powerful than that country's centuries-old heritage of unrestricted public expression. The latest casualty is journalist and activist Tommy Robinson. He's sitting in prison tonight. His crime, daring to talk about sexual abuse rings run by Muslim immigrants to the UK. Robinson pointed out that Britain's policies are destroying the country, so the people who made those policies jailed him. We talked to Katie Hopkins from Rebel Media about this the other night. Here's part of the conversation.
What we have to ask ourselves is, what happened to freedom of speech in the UK? Because I firmly believe, and it's my opinion, we no longer have freedom of speech in the UK. And I believe Tommy Robinson will be killed inside the prison, and it will be the establishment that have blood on their hands.
Douglas Murray is the author of the fantastic book, The Strange Death of Europe. He has followed Robinson's case from the beginning. He joins us tonight. Mr. Murray, thank you for coming on. I'm not surprised that this is happening because the people in power always try and tamp down on dissent. That's always been the case. I'm surprised by the reaction to it. How much press has this gotten in the UK? How much outrage has it evoked? What's the response?
Well, it's been remarkable. There was actually a reporting restriction on the fact that Robinson had been arrested and sent to prison within hours. There was actually a reporting restriction on that in the UK that made it impossible for any British journalist like myself to write about it for some days, which meant that the international media picked it up, but here in Britain we weren't allowed to talk about it. There's an ongoing trial, a rape gang trial, which he was actually...
May I just stop you right there? So what would,
Sure.
I mean, groups of people in a similar professions go on strike all the time. Why wouldn't journalists in the UK say, we're covering this? Tough if you don't like it, come and arrest us. Why would they obey an order like that?
Well, we do have pretty strict contempt orders here in the UK, and basically anyone who would have reported it would have ended up risking going to prison themselves. So it's a very tricky one. There is one, by the way, very quick justification for this, which is that there is an ongoing trial which he was reporting outside of, and there's a problem about reporting on that trial. Again, I'm sitting in London, so I have to be rather careful about mentioning that trial.
It's unbelievable. So and I know his politics, which I don't even fully understand, and I don't even care what they are, but I sense they're very different from those of most reporters in Great Britain. But has there been support for him from journalists in the UK?
No, not really. I mean, this is something I write quite a bit about in my book, in The Strange Death of Europe, which is that basically we have in Britain, as across Europe, this primary and secondary problem issue, whereby you have a primary problem, as in this case, thousands and thousands of young British girls who've been raped by gangs of men we euphemistically describe as Asian, although they don't include any Chinese or Koreans. Right. We've had thousands of people who've been raped by these gangs. That's the primary problem. The secondary thing is that there are people who then say, look at what's happening. And actually, as I've said on this case, as with many others, the law and everything else comes down incredibly hard on the secondary thing, indeed sometimes harder than on the primary issue. I wrote about this, by the way, the other day at the Carlson Institute website. You can see the piece about, I said, let's just compare the treatment of Tommy Robinson, who's been, whether you agree with him or not, trying to draw attention to the rape gang stuff, and the one official from the county council in Oxfordshire who was in charge of child services when hundreds of girls in her area were raped and abused, and it turned out that the council knew about a whole load of it, and they just ignored the families. Now, Now Tommy Robinson is now in jail. That woman at the county council in Oxfordshire got a £250,000 payoff several years later to leave the council, and now, wait for it, is running the tourist agency Visit Oxfordshire.
Your society really hates itself. When did that start?
Well, my view is, you see, that this is all an expression of an incredibly wide societal cowardice, and it starts off in a country like Britain with kind of good manners. You know, we sort of want everyone to get along. We want to be nice to each other. We want to be nice to people who are incomers and so on. And then you discover terrible things that are going on, minorities within minorities, but nevertheless you discover things that are going on, and then you get to this really weird position that we're in at the moment. It's the position I describe as the one that says in multiculturalism, well, we've got a bit more gang rape than we used to, but then there's a wider range of cuisines, so
it's unbelievable.
Who's to say?
I recognize that. I wish we had more time. Mr. Murray, thank you. Great to see you.
Thank you.